My sister Lisa tried to replace me with my own daughter by secretly funding a private investigator to dig up a lie from my past and convince my husband I was an unfit mother. All so she could steal my family and my life. The terrifying part was how patient she was, how she wove her web so slowly and carefully that by the time I realized I was trapped, I was already halfway to losing everything I held dear. I always knew there was a quiet, simmering rivalry between me and my sister, Lisa. She's 28, 2 years younger than me, and our paths couldn't have diverged more dramatically after high school. I was the responsible one, the planner. I built a career as a graphic designer, married my college sweetheart, David, a solid and kind-hearted architect, and we had our wonderful bright-eyed daughter, Sophie, who is now 11. My life was built on a foundation of routine, love, and security. Lisa's life, in contrast, was a series of dramatic, chaotic chapters written in disappearing ink. She bounced from one get-rich-quick scheme to another, selling questionable supplements, recruiting for a dubious cryptocurrency, becoming a life coach after a single weekend seminar. Her relationships were equally turbulent. Intense, fiery romances that burned out quickly, leaving emotional wreckage in their wake. She always managed to land on her feet, often with the help of our parents, especially our mom, who constantly made excuses for her. "She's just finding herself," Mom would say, or "she has a free spirit unlike you." But at every family gathering, every holiday, I could see the resentment in Lisa's eyes when our parents praised my career or doted on Sophie. She'd make backhanded comments about my boring, predictable life or how David and I were too structured, with Sophie stifling her spontaneous creativity. "Children need magic, not spreadsheets," she'd declare, sipping her wine. The real seismic shift happened about a year ago. Lisa's latest venture, a multi-level marketing scheme for essential oils that promised to heal everything from anxiety to plantar warts, collapsed spectacularly, leaving her in debt. To make matters worse, her boyfriend of 6 months, a slick-talking musician named Jake, left her, allegedly taking what little savings she had managed to scrape together. She showed up on our doorstep one rainy Tuesday night, her mascara running in black trails down her cheeks, clutching a single battered suitcase. David, ever the kind soul, his heart too big for his own good, felt a surge of pity. "She's family," he said, his arm around my shoulders. "We can't leave her out in the cold." I was hesitant. A slideshow of memories from our childhood played in my mind. Lisa borrowing my favorite doll and returning it with its hair chopped off. Her reading my secret diary aloud to her friends. Her somehow always being the victim, the one who needed comforting even when I was the one who had been wronged. But she was my sister. The blood tie, that stubborn primal bond, tugged at me. We let her move into our cozy guest room, the one with the view of the backyard garden, just for a few weeks until she got back on her feet. Those weeks bled into months. Lisa was surprisingly, disarmingly helpful at first. She'd have dinner waiting for us when we came home from work. Elaborate meals she'd spent all day preparing. She started picking Sophie up from school when David and I were stuck in late meetings. She folded laundry with a terrifying efficiency. She became cool Aunt Lisa, the fun, unpredictable alternative to us, the boring parents. She was the one who would let Sophie have an extra scoop of ice cream, who would secretly extend her bedtime to watch just one more episode of a cartoon, who whispered that rules were made for people who were afraid to live. I started to let my guard down. The constant low-level alarm bell that had been ringing in my head since her arrival began to quiet. Maybe she had truly changed. Maybe all she ever needed was a little stability and unconditional love. Then the strange, almost imperceptible things began. It started small, so small I thought I was imagining it. I'd come home from a long day at work and find Lisa curled up on the sofa, wearing my favorite cashmere sweater, The soft blue one David gave me for my birthday. Oh, you said I could borrow it, remember? She'd say with a sweet, placid smile. This morning when I was complaining about the chill. I was certain I hadn't. I remembered the conversation, but I distinctly remembered not offering the sweater. But her certainty was so absolute that I began to doubt my own memory. Oh, right, I'd murmur, feeling off kilter. Then I started noticing the scent of my perfume lingering in rooms she had just left. Not just any perfume, but my signature scent, the expensive, distinctive jasmine and sandalwood one David bought me for our anniversary. When I confronted her, she laughed, a light, tinkling sound. We just have similar tastes, sis. It's a compliment, really. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But it didn't feel like flattery. It felt like infiltration. The dynamic between her and David began to feel off. A picture that was slightly crooked. Lisa would insert herself into our private conversations, finishing his sentences or referencing a shared coffee break they'd had that I knew nothing about. She'd touch his arm when she laughed at his jokes, her hand lingering a moment too long. She started using phrases he used, adopting his opinions on movies and politics. When I tried to talk to David about it one night after she had gone to bed, he dismissed my concerns with a gentle kiss on the forehead. She's just lonely, honey. He's trying to feel like part of the family. She looks up to us. Don't be so hard on her. The first major incident, the one that sent a true jolt of fear through me, happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home on a tight deadline for a major client. Lisa, seeing me stressed, generously offered to take Sophie to her weekly piano lesson. I was grateful. It meant I could have 2 hours of uninterrupted focus. At 4:15 p.m. my phone rang. It was Mrs. Gable, Sophie's elderly, meticulous piano teacher. "Mrs. Wright," she said, her voice tight with concern. "I just wanted to check if everything is all right. Sophie hasn't arrived for her lesson." My heart instantly dropped into the pit of my stomach. What? Her Aunt Lisa dropped her off over half an hour ago. "There's no one here, dear," Mrs. Gable replied. A cold dread washed over me. I called Lisa's phone. It rang once and then went straight to voicemail. I called again and again, the same result. My breath started coming in short, sharp gasps. I called David, my voice shaking so badly he could barely understand me. Lisa took Sophie to piano and they never arrived. "She's not answering her phone." He told me he was leaving the office immediately. Just as he was rushing home 20 minutes later, the front door swung open and Lisa and Sophie walked in, laughing, holding half-eaten ice cream cones, their faces flushed as if they'd been running. "Where were you?" I demanded, my voice shrill with a mixture of relief and terror. "Mrs. Gable said you never came. I've been calling you for an hour." Lisa looked at me, her expression one of pure, innocent confusion. "What are you talking about? I texted you. Sophie said she was feeling overwhelmed with school and needed a mental health day. We decided to go to the park instead. I thought you understood." You replied with a heart emoji. I scrambled for my phone, my hands trembling. I scrolled through my messages. There was no text from her. I showed her my screen, my finger stabbing at the empty space. "There's nothing here, Lisa. Nothing." She shrugged, her face a mask of gentle pity. "Oh honey, you've been so stressed with work. You probably saw the notification, thought you replied, and forgot. It's okay. We're all safe. See, Sophie's fine." She placed a hand on Sophie's shoulder. Sophie, looking back and forth between us, her small face creased with confusion, nodded slowly. "Aunt Lisa said you said it was okay, Mommy." She showed me a text on her phone. That was the moment. The moment the seed of doubt was planted, not just in my mind but in the room. David walked in at that moment, having heard the tail end of the conversation. He looked from my panicked face to Lisa's calm, concerned one, to Sophie's confused one. "You have been under a lot of pressure, babe," he said, his voice gentle but with an undercurrent of something new, uncertainty. "Maybe you just forgot." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I was being gaslighted in my own home, and my own husband was starting to believe the illusion. "David, I didn't forget." There was no text. Lisa just gave me a sad, knowing look as if I were a child having a tantrum. The gaslighting escalated after that, becoming more brazen. My car keys would go missing and I'd find them hours later in the freezer, tucked behind a box of frozen peas. Lisa would claim with wide, innocent eyes that she saw me put them there earlier when I was looking for a snack and seemed really out of it. She started having those quiet, intimate conversations with David in the kitchen, conversations that would stop abruptly the moment I walked in, leaving a palpable silence in their wake. She began to subtly undermine my parenting, pulling David aside to whisper that she was worried about me, that I seemed detached from Sophie, that I was forgetting simple things more and more often. She was meticulously constructing a narrative of my instability brick by brick. The climax, the moment the trap she had built snapped shut around me, came on a Friday evening. We were supposed to have a family movie night, a sacred tradition in our house. I volunteered to get the big, soft blanket from the basement storage chest. This chest was a time capsule of our lives, holding old photo albums, my university thesis, Sophie's baby clothes, and a box of my personal mementos from my late teens and early 20s. As I lifted the heavy lid, the smell of cedar and old paper filled the air. I moved aside a stack of Sophie's childhood drawings and reached for the blanket. My hand brushed against something that wasn't fabric. It was a crisp, new manila envelope, tucked right at the bottom, beneath a pile of my old notebooks from a creative writing class. A cold prickle of apprehension ran down my spine. This didn't belong here. I pulled it out. It was unmarked. With trembling fingers, I undid the clasp and tipped the contents into my lap. A series of photographs spilled out, and my world stopped. They were photos of me. From over a decade ago, during what I privately called my wild phase, a brief, reckless period right after high school before I met David. I was in a dark, grimy club I barely remembered, my hair messy, my makeup smudged, my eyes glazed and distant. I looked disheveled and out of it. There were photos of me with a group of people I could scarcely recall, holding drinks, my posture slack. And then there was the damning one. A photo of me, clear as day, accepting a small, unmarked white envelope from a shady-looking man with tattoos coiling up his neck. I remembered that night with a jolt of shame and fear. It was the night I had dabbled in things I never should have, driven by grief over a lost friendship and a desperate need to feel something other than pain. That envelope contained what I later learned were illegal prescription pills. It was one night, one stupid, catastrophic mistake that had scared me so straight I buried it deep, vowing never to go near that world again. No one knew. Not David, not my parents. No one. Holding these photos felt like being physically assaulted by my own past. My blood ran cold. How did anyone get these? Why were they here? I heard a soft, almost inaudible step on the creaky basement stairs. I looked up, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was Lisa. She stood there, silhouetted in the dim light from the kitchen above, looking down at me. And she was smiling. It was a cold, triumphant smile that didn't reach her eyes, a predator's smile. "Looking for something?" she asked, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. She descended the rest of the stairs slowly, deliberately, like a panther moving in for the kill. "What is this, Lisa?" I whispered, the photographs trembling in my hand. "It's insurance," she said calmly, reaching the bottom and folding her arms. "You see, I've come to realize that this life, your life, is what I want. I deserve it. This beautiful house. Stable, kind David. Sweet, wonderful Sophie. They deserve someone more consistent." Someone who isn't hiding a sordid little past of drug abuse. I was a kid. It was one night, one stupid mistake. I choked out, tears of shame and fury springing to my eyes. Was it? She said, tilting her head in a parody of curiosity. The private investigator I hired has worked very hard to construct a very compelling narrative. A story of a woman with a hidden addiction, one that's starting to resurface under pressure. The forgetfulness, the stress, the missed appointments, the erratic behavior. It all fits together beautifully, doesn't it? A picture of a woman unraveling. I stared at her, utterly horrified. This wasn't the chaotic, messy sister I knew. This was a calculated, patient, and utterly ruthless predator. She hadn't just been living in my house. She had been conducting a long-term operation, weaving a web around me for months, and I, like a fool, had walked right into the center of it. I'm going to show these to David, she continued, her voice dropping to a conversational, almost friendly tone. Tonight. I'm going to tell him how I found them, how I've been so worried about you, and how this explains everything. I'll tell him I think you're using again. And with everything else he's witnessed lately, the forgotten texts, the misplaced keys, your paranoia about me, he'll believe me. He'll have to for Sophie's sake. And when he can't take it anymore and asks you to leave, I'll be right here to pick up the pieces. I'll be the stable one. The reliable, fun aunt who seamlessly becomes the new mother figure. The sheer, chilling audacity of her plan left me breathless. She wasn't just trying to drive a wedge between me and my family. She was trying to surgically remove me and slot herself into my place, wearing my skin. You're insane, I breathed, the words barely audible. I'm pragmatic, she corrected smoothly. Now you have a choice. You can leave quietly, citing mental health issues or needing space, and I'll keep these photos to myself. Your secret remains safe with me. Or you can fight me and I will destroy you. David will never look at you the same way again. He'll see a liar and a drug user. And good luck getting any custody of Sophie when the court sees this photographic evidence. Who do you think they'll believe? I felt frozen, trapped in a nightmare. The evidence was damning, and Lisa's narrative was perfectly constructed, backed by months of subtle psychological groundwork. Who would they believe? The stable, helpful sister who had been there through everything, or the stressed, unstable wife with a hidden drug history? That night I didn't sleep a wink. I lay beside David, my body rigid with tension, pretending everything was fine during the movie, forcing laughs that felt like shards of glass in my throat. I could feel Lisa's victorious gaze on me from the armchair, could see the way David looked at me with a mixture of love and a new, unsettling concern, already primed by her whispers to see the instability she was projecting onto me. I was losing them and I felt utterly powerless to stop it. The next morning, a Saturday, felt surreal. The sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows was too bright, too cheerful for the horror show my life had become. Lisa was humming, making pancakes for Sophie, playing the part of the perfect stand-in wife and mother with gusto. She announced she was taking Sophie to the park for a few hours. As she was gathering her things, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was so confident, so sure of her victory, that she simply walked out the front door, leaving it behind. It was a gut instinct, a desperate last-ditch move born of pure survival. I walked over and picked up the phone. It was locked, but the screen was lit up with notifications from a messaging app. I saw a name I recognized, Jake. Her ex-boyfriend, the one who had supposedly left her destitute. Driven by a fear I'd never known, I started trying passcodes. Her birthday, no. Our mom's birthday, no. My birthday, a long shot, an absurd thought. The phone unlocked. My heart hammered so violently I thought I might be sick. I opened the message thread with Jake. And there was the entire vile plan, laid out in cold, clinical detail over weeks of messages. Lisa, the PI struck gold. Photos of her from 2012. She looks a complete mess, totally out of it. Perfect. Jake, you're really going through with this? This is next level even for you, Lise. Karma's a bitch. Lisa, she's weak. She doesn't appreciate what she has. I deserve this life more than she does. I'd actually enjoy it, not just treat it like a checklist. Jake. What if David doesn't believe the story? He seems like a smart guy. Lisa, he will. I've been setting the stage for months. The gaslighting is working perfectly. He already thinks she's cracking under pressure. Once he sees the photos, it'll be the final nail in the coffin. Then it's just a matter of time before I'm Mrs. David Wright, and this is all my house. Jake and the kid? Lisa, Sophie adores me. She'll be easier to manage once her unstable mother is out of the picture. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated fury that burned away the fear and despair. This was my proof. This was my salvation. With hands that had stopped shaking, now steady with rage, I took photos of the entire conversation with my own phone, scrolling and capturing every vile, plotting word. Then, for good measure, I made a screen recording, slowly scrolling through the entire thread, making sure the dates and the contact name were visible. When Lisa returned an hour later, laughing as she and Sophie came through the door, I was waiting for her in the living room, my phone in my hand. David was next to me on the sofa, his face a mask of confusion at my solemn demeanor. "What's going on?" Lisa asked, her smile faltering as she took in our expressions, her eyes darting to her phone, which I had placed face down on the coffee table. I didn't say a word. I just held up my phone and played the screen recording. I watched as the color drained from her face, leaving her ashen. Her own words, her vile, calculated plan, filled the quiet room, each sentence a hammer blow. David's face went from confusion to dawning horror, then to a cold, hard rage I had never seen in him before. He stood up, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You were trying to take my family?" he whispered, his voice dangerously quiet, trembling with the effort to control it. Lisa started to splutter, to deny it, her eyes wide with panic. "It's not what it looks like. He's twisting it. She must have faked those messages." But the evidence was irrefutable, digital and damning. "She drove me to it," she finally screamed, her composure shattering completely. She pointed a trembling, accusatory finger at me, her face contorted with years of pent-up bitterness. Her perfect little life. Her perfect husband. Her perfect daughter. Mom and Dad always loved her more. They always praised her while I was just the problem child. I was just taking what should have been mine all along. The mask was off, shattered on the floor, revealing the deeply wounded, envious and dangerous woman beneath. "Get out of my house," David said, his voice low and steady, filled with a finality that brooked no argument. "Now, take your things and get out. If I ever see you near my wife or my daughter again, I will not be responsible for my actions." The fallout was nuclear. Lisa was gone within the hour, shrieking curses and promises that we would regret this as David supervised her packing. When we called my mom to tell her what had happened, she was initially horrified, but true to form, she quickly slid into excuse-making mode. "She's sick, she needs help, she's your sister. You can't just abandon her. She's clearly mentally ill." But for the first time, David and I stood completely united and firm. We told her that Lisa was no longer welcome in our lives, that she was a danger to our family, and that if she, our mother, chose to side with a woman who would deliberately try to destroy her own sister's family, then she would be choosing to lose us and Sophie too. We changed the locks that very afternoon. The following week, we had a top-of-the-line security system installed, with cameras at every entrance and sensors on the windows. We contacted a lawyer and sent a formal cease and desist letter to Lisa, formally barring her from contacting us in any way. We also forwarded the evidence of her conspiracy with the private investigator to the state licensing board and the local police. The PI is now under investigation for illegal surveillance, fabricating evidence, and invasion of privacy. We were told that criminal charges against Lisa for harassment and conspiracy were a strong possibility. It's been 6 months now. The peace in our house is profound, earned through fire. The shadow that was Lisa is gone. David and I are closer than ever, the experience having forged our bond in a way I didn't think possible. He apologized to me over and over with tears in his eyes for ever doubting me for not seeing what was happening right under his nose. We started weekly couples counseling to work through the residual betrayal and trauma, to learn how to communicate even better, and to ensure our marriage was stronger than ever. We have check-in nights now, where we talk openly about everything, ensuring no resentment or misunderstanding can ever fester again. Sophie still asks about cool Aunt Lisa, sometimes her memory of the fun times slowly fading, and we simply calmly tell her that Aunt Lisa had to go away because she wasn't making safe or kind choices, and that we only allow people in our lives who are safe and kind. It's the simplest, most profound truth. As for me, I learned a brutal, life-altering lesson about the terrifying lengths to which envy and resentment can drive a person. I learned that family isn't always defined by blood, but by who stands by you, believes you, and fights for you when your world is being systematically torn down by the very people who are supposed to love you the most. My family is David and Sophie. Our circle is smaller now, but it is fortified with trust, respect, and a love that has been tested and has emerged unbreakable. And we are finally, unequivocally safe.